Hello everyone. It is Friday, May 27th, 9:56 a.m. Just got back from mass a little while ago, did some work. It is pouring out here, so I just got soaked coming in my house. But there is something I want to point out in regards to prophecy. I'm eventually going to get back on track here with my plagues videos, but I've been taking a lot of detours, but it's all kinds of contribute in a way contributing to videos for that as well. So I'm just gonna go in kinds of a spiral here instead of a straight line. One couple of things I want to point out. I'm gonna post a video series below, and it's from Marian News, is the YouTube channel, but it's a nun, Sister Anne. I don't know if she's a nun or a religious sister. I think she's a full nun because she said she's from a Carmelite order, I think. But anyway, she has a series called Unveiling the Apocalypse, and it is based upon Father Stephen Goby's supposed locutions from Mary. I find them to be extraordinarily insightful personally. The church has not said that they were from a supernatural origin, though. So I just want to make that clear. However, the movement that came out of it, the Marian movement of priests, or the Marian movement, I think it's called, has a lot of priests and cardinals and bishops and lay people in it, and I believe it is fruitful. And so one of the judges we can look at for true prophecy is if something is fruitful. So I'm going to pretty much leave that alone for the most part. Here's my holds up with it. The timeline thing. So it's one of those that, at least the way she's interpreting it, is that there will be a long era of peace and the Antichrist comes before that. So that's my holds up. It's not even so much the time period of peace. My main holds up is the timing of the Antichrist with a capital A. So when I mean Antichrist, I don't mean the manifestations of the Antichrist that are from the beginning of time. I mean the man of perdition, and I guess that's what I should refer to him as. And a lot of people say the man of perdition will come before this period of peace. However, there's a lot of prophetic consensus from saints that also say the man of perdition will come after the period of peace and be destroyed at the physical second coming of Christ. And so this has always been my holds up with these prophecies because I see evidence on both sides. Personally, I lean more towards Antichrist after the period of peace. I just do. So, but who am I, right? Anyway, the best explanation I have found for all this has no doubt been Father Don Delindo, and I'm going to just read part of that. He says this terrible event. Um, Maybe I should read more than that. So he says 3.5 days will remain exposed to the scheme of the wicked multitudes, and after 3.5 days, the spirit of life coming from God, that is, their soul, will return to their bodies, and they, risen to immortal life, will stand up with great fright to those who all witness such an impressive scene. Then a great voice will be heard from heaven, inviting them to rise, and they will ascend to immense glory, enveloped in a cloud, as one day Jesus Christ ascended to heaven. And it's fitting that we're talking about this because it's Ascension Week, Ascension Thursday/Sunday. Their enemies will see them and be amazed and confused by them, and in that same hour there will be a formidable earthquake that will ruin the tenth part of the city, killing 7,000 people under its rubble. The survivors of such a scourge will recognize the hand of the Lord and will give him glory, confessing their truth and power. And so he's speaking of the time of the Antichrist after the period of Christ, and he's speaking of the two witnesses, Enoch and Elijah, ascending into heaven. And so he says this terrible event, very particular of the time of the Antichrist at the end of the world, will be preceded by something similar. albeit in lesser proportions. At the time of the restoration of everything in Jesus Christ, after the great exterminating war, the two witnesses of the time, the great king and the great pope of love, will also find themselves faced with the apostate and wicked world, and will present themselves to him not in the royal or pontifical palliations, but dressed in sackcloth and penance and humility. They will be two olive trees for the anointing of grace, and two candlesticks for the light of faith that will shine in them. They will undergo a ruthless struggle for 3.5 years, during which the most wicked people will trample the holy city, that is, papal Rome. And so here's what I want to point out, because we have like two sets of prophecy, both fitting, but one being before the period of peace, which has to do with Rome specifically, and one after the period of peace, which has to do with Jerusalem. And so that's where I think things can sort of get blurred together, like which prophecy and which portion of scripture goes with which city in which time period. And I think we have to be very clear on the distinction, because there are two separate tribulation periods, so to speak, with the Great Tribulation being, from what I understand, after the period of peace, and having to really do with the converted Catholics, because here's what I mean. So the man of perdition is going to kill, he's going to make the most amount of saints ever, right? With the most amount of martyrs ever. And so Jesus in all his mercy, God in all his mercy, is not going to let people die for a false church, a false Christianity. So by the time he comes on the scene, a great portion has to be converted to Catholicism. The false religions of Protestantism and whatever else are going to have to be stamped out, is the way I see it. And so we have these two time periods, one dealing with papal Rome, one dealing with the purification of the church. In a whole, one dealing with the purification really of Christianity and religion in general, and then one dealing with the sorry, not dealing with Rome, and then at the end one dealing with the holy city of Jerusalem. Because if you look at the prophecies, especially I think it's Saint Hildegard says the great monarch will lay down his throne, or lay down his scepter in Jerusalem, in the holy city. And so at that point, the Antichrist comes on the scene and will reign from Jerusalem, just as Christ, that was Christ's territory when he was physically on earth. That will be the man of perdition's territory. But in the meantime, a miniature microcosm of that, from what I understand and what makes logical sense, will happen in Rome. And so I've been reading a lot of prophecy about Rome this week. And one thing I want to point out that is pretty consistent. First of all, the prophecies of Rome and France pretty much go hand in hand. Why? I'm going to get to that in a minute. But it seems that the communist armies, so they could be considered, so the communism in general, atheistic communism can be considered the military of Satan, is the way I look at it. So when Marie-Julie Jahenny talks about Red Revolution, that is a communist revolution of violence, atheism and violence. That is, according to Father Gobi's locutions, symbolized in the book of Revelation, the book of the Apocalypse, as the red dragon. The red dragon that makes war with the woman clothed with the sun is atheistic communism. And what I have noticed, and so every time, or at least among most of the prophets that I see, this idea of red is associated with this red dragon, and it's associated with war, and it's associated with communism. Then we also have black. Black, especially from Catherine Emmerich, talks about this a lot. She talks about a black church. She talks about a little black man in Rome. And I'll read that in a minute. But this is symbolic of the sea beast coming out of the abyss, the black, dark abyss. The sea beast, according to Father Gobi, if you want to, I consider this to be, regardless of the authenticity. I find this to be very much in line with everything else I have come across is the secret sex, the Freemasonry, the puppet masters behind pulling strings behind the scenes sort of thing, and all their entities, the World Economic Forum and whatever else. Then you have the land beast, which symbolizes the corruption and the infiltration of the church, the Masonic infiltration of the church. It's this, some people refer to it as ecclesiastical Freemasonry. It's this liberal ideology in the church. And so with the Freemasons, we see them birthing this liberal ideology, which gives way to communism. So they kind of plow the field, so to speak. They set the stage. They corrupt the public. So you have two corrupting forces. You have the corruption in the church from the land beast, and then you have the corruption in the world from the sea beast. And so they kind of lay the groundwork. They poison the well. And then when the time is appropriate, the red dragon comes and makes war to a weakened society and a weakened church. And so this is how I see it playing out. And I also want to point out, while he specifically names it, according to him from Mary, as atheistic communism, it could, yeah. And then I would also include in that everything as their alliances as well, because there are other alliances within that, but I guess I won't get into that right this second. And so, what I really want to read is the color scheme is just so profound to me. Marie Julie Jeheny speaks of black laws being passed by the Chamber of Hell, which is a reference to the Masonic Republic that abolished the monarchy. Black laws aligns with the black beast from the abyss, which is the sea beast, which is, I guess, I don't consider it the New World Order, but I guess you could consider it that. I always look at the whole thing, the dragon, the sea beast and the land beast kind of as the New World Order, because it's all working for the same terrible end. But if you want to consider, I guess, just the secularized, I would look at the sea beast as the secular entity of the New World Order, the secular brains kind of sort of thing. But she says, she speaks of black laws. So the black laws being passed by the Chamber of Hell, and we know that they were born in the Masonic lodges. So the black laws, black again is associated with the sea beast. Catherine Emmerich, talks about the little black man in Rome. She says this: the little black man in Rome, whom I see so often, has many working for him, without their clearly knowing for what end. He has agents in the new black church. And so this new black church is a product, is associated with the sea beast, associated with Freemasonry. If the Pope leaves Rome, the enemies of the church will get the upper hand. I see the little black man in his own country committing many thefts and falsifying things generally. Religion is there so skillfully undermined and stifled that there are scarcely 100 faithful priests left. And so when we see this, religion is undermined, the internal fraction of in influencing the church to be more liberalized and things like that, that's part of the land beast. This internal undermining. The external undermining would be this part of the sea beast, just in society in general. I cannot say how it is, but I see fog and darkness increasing. All must be rebuilt soon, for everyone, even ecclesiastics, are laboring to destroy, and ruin is at hand. The two enemies of the church who have lost their accomplice are firmly resolved to destroy the pious and learned men that stand in their way. And that's a very Interesting line in cryptic. The two enemies of the church who have lost their accomplice. I don't exactly know what that means, but I'm assuming the two enemies of the church would be the two beasts, the land beast and the sea beast. And if maybe they lost their accomplice of communism, I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. And the author's note is the little black man remains a mystery. Definitely a satanic enemy of some sort. I would say the little black man is probably a false prophet of this New World Order church, of this Freemasonic church, would be my guess. The ecclesiastical church, but I don't know. He could also be, since he's associated with black and the sea beast, he could also be maybe somebody politically in charge of something. I'm not really sure. I agree, it still is a mystery. So, again, we look at these black laws. In the Chamber of Hell in Paris, the black laws will be passed. This is Marie-Julie Jahenny. They will be a type of refinement, an unprecedented evil that will be directed against the faith in the church, an attempt to erase everything of God. They will go to the point of effacing the arts and remake them under a hideous form. And then very bad times will come when non-Catholics will lead many people astray. A great confusion will result. I saw the battle also. The enemies are far more numerous, but the small army of the faithful cut down the whole rows of enemy soldiers. During the battle, the Blessed Virgin stood on a hill wearing a suit of armor. It was a terrible war. At the end, only a few fighters for the just cause survived, but the victory was theirs. And here she talks about the strange ecumenical church. I saw that many pastors allowed themselves to be taken up with ideas that were dangerous to the church. So they're part of the land beasts. They were building a great, strange, and extravagant church. Everyone was admitted to it in order to be united and have equal rights. And so it's a church of Freemasonry. It's exactly what they do. Fraternity above all. Evangelicals, Catholics, sects of every description, such was to be their new church, but God had other designs. She talks about this a lot. I want to talk about the Red Revolutions as well, so I'm going to pause this a minute. I don't have that pulled up. One thing I want to read, that this is Marie-Julie Jahenny. Satan will be granted a complete triumph for a short time. I will attack the church. I will throw down the cross. I will divide or cause division among the people. I will deposit in hearts a major weakening of the faith, and there will be a great betrayal. Say unto the Lord, I will become for some time the supreme master of all things. I will have everything under my empire, even your temple, and of all yours entirely. And so, how will he, we already see this being fulfilled. I will attack the church. I will throw down the cross. Who is the military might, so to speak? It's these radicalized communists that are doing the violence. So I want to just point that out. Sorry, hold on. All right, so I want to point out more of this symbolism, because I just find it interesting that scripture in the book of Revelation, or Revelation 12, does specifically call the dragon red, and I don't think that can be overlooked. So here, another forerunner of the great chastisements, children will be corrupted. Parents will corrupt their children with impurity and raise them in adult matters before they reach the age of reason. The red government, communism, atheistic communism, will then force parents to give up their children to them to be corrupted. A government program that will last circa 44 days, and that's Marie-Julie Jahenny. Alois Irlemeyer also hints that evil laws that bring death to children will be passed at this time. And let us not forget that abortion was first legalized in the Soviet Union. A new form of socialism, communism, will insidiously spread through the earth. Marie-Julie Jahenny predicts a red terror and a red revolution from France that will spread. The origins had their beginning from the French Revolution, and so we directly see this link between Freemasonry and the secret societies in the Red Revolution. Something interesting to note, when the final upheaval, I guess, of the French Revolution, um, basically when I think it was, who was the monarch that was killed? Charles the something, and it was the end of the French monarchy. Karl Marx was actually in France witnessing this as a child, so that's interesting. Blessed Sister Elena warns Russia would attempt to dominate the world and spread its errors, and obviously Our Lady of Fatima. Um, the first of the Red Revolution against God and the Church will come from the Chamber of Hell in France, the Chamber of Deputies in the National Assembly. More warning signs. Our Lady will appear again near La Salette. A sign in the sky before the chastisements of the Red War in the 3 days of fire, darkness to come. So even that's blessed. That's not Marie Julie Jehani. That's Blessed Sister Elena talks about a red war. And this will be, from what I understand, a world war, obviously, but also civil war. Look at what's happening in America right now: the left versus the right, communism versus non-communism. Like it's this whole thing. And something I also want to add that I laid out nicely in a social media post this morning is the following. Joe Biden, along with Trudeau and Macron and whoever else across Christendom, is the ideology of the Masonic secular order and the Masonic infiltration of the church personified. Archbishop Vigano refers to this as the deep state / deep church, but you can simply refer to it as the book of Revelation does, as the sea beast and the land beast. This deadly duo works with the red dragon. I already went over that. It's a battle against the woman clothed with the sun, aka the church, but more specifically, those consecrated to Mary. Some people, obviously, like I said, referred to all this as the New World Order versus Christendom. But back to Biden, he is the product of generations of liberal ideology started in the Masonic lodges that has poisoned society and the church. And so it has risen, now this whole system has risen to the top, has risen to the highest position in the world. He is a true degenerate puppet of the agenda of Lucifer himself. The more I think about it, the more I know that this is no accident. He got elected, cheating aside, at this point in time as a warning. It was divine providence because God is a God of justice and he shows his people why punishment and purification are needed. Again, Joe Biden is far from the only one. It seems the whole Western world has elected or has been put under these type of leaders who have betrayed their country and their church for their own agendas. And so I wanted to share that because that's extraordinarily important to understand the coming chastisements. First, the man-made hell that this order creates for their own purposes. And then when it looks like there is no hope, the divine punishments that will begin as an act of mercy, because God will once again free his people from slavery, just as he did in Egypt. So I wanted to share that as well because I think that's particularly important right now. Anyway, I guess that's all I wanted to point out. I found the colors interesting because we have multiple prophets, multiple church approved prophets introducing these themes, associating black with Freemasonry, associating red with communism. And we see this in the book of Revelation. And we are living in interesting times. Again, the jury for me is still out on the period of peace, how long that will be, and really also on the Antichrist, with the man of perdition, when he shows up. But I personally prescribe more to the idea that the man of perdition will be destroyed at the final coming of Jesus with his throne and at the final judgment, when the final judgment. But I could be wrong. But that's just the consensus I see. But it doesn't mean that the period leading up to that um, won't be just as bad or worse for the church specifically. And obviously the world as well. But our big purification, I think our big pain, our big purification is really what we're living in now. And it's an act of mercy to prepare the church to stand strong in the face of the final whatever. So that's all I got. Have a blessed Friday. Joan of Arc Media out.